On this episode of resiweek, the CEDIA keynote is all about Internet of Intelligent Things. You too can build a true 4K system, and THX joins a streaming video alliance. All this and more on this episode of resiweek.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
Support for AVNation is brought to you by Chief, the global leader in commercial AV mounting solutions, and by Kramer, AV Beyond the Box.
This is resiweek episode 63, Working Together.
This is resiweek.
Welcome to resiweek. This is your weekly wrap-up of all the latest news and stories for the residential AV industry. I'm your host, Matt D. Scott for AVNation.tv. Today, I'm pleased to be joined by Heather Sidorowicz. She's the president of Southtown AV. Hey, Heather, how are you?
I am chilling like a villain.
You haven't been on with us in a while.
It has been a while.
I feel honored.
Thanks for having me back.
Hey, thanks for coming back. And then we have, last but not least, Jason Knott. He's the editor of CE Pro and a good friend of the show. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well, and I am least when Heather's on the show, so thanks for having me.
I wasn't going to say it. I was thinking it, but I was not going to say it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's jump right into an announcement that came out just a couple of days ago, and this comes to us from Residential Systems. CEDIA has announced their 2007 opening keynote speaker. Dave Evans, the co-founder and CTO of Stringify and the former chief futurist at Cisco, is going to deliver the keynote for all the CEDIA people that are going to be in attendance at CEDIA. Now, what makes this a little interesting is he will be, shockingly enough, talking about IoT and specifically the Internet of Intelligent Things, which he believes will be the next phase of IoT, and how this is really going to create a massive opportunity for residential integrators and CEDIA members as such. Heather, you and we've actually sat together at some of these keynotes. One, do you enjoy the keynotes when they take this futurist style? And personally, I always cringe when I hear that term. But are you excited when you see somebody like this coming in?
I actually did not know who he was coming into it. So some of them have been great. One of my favorites actually was Tony Fidel. I thought he gave a great presentation when he was there. And I love that he was there knowing that most people wouldn't like him off the bat, and then won most of the audience over that year. I appreciate this more than a product story, which we know has happened in the past. We won't mention any names that are 4 letters long.
Start with S.
Let's start with S. So I think it's better than that. My issue comes in the concept of working together versus the actuality, right? So it's easy for us to say all these devices and they're going to talk to each other and it will be amazing and it's going to change the world. But we can't even get the simplest stuff to talk together right now. I mean, they release it, they say that it works, but it doesn't really. I mean, I see that now. Look at the Sonos, right? We have one of the most popular. You have Alexa. You have these devices still through third parties can kind of communicate, but they're not ubiquitous yet. They're not doing that in a simple way. So I think it's way easier to talk about than to actually happen.
Jason, when you hear what Heather just had to say about it, and Heather, I agree with pretty much everything you said there. It's always comical to me when it's this pie in the sky. Everything's going to work together right out of the box.
We see that all the time, right, Matt? They all work together so well.
Everything does. But Jason, when you see something like that and you hear that response from Heather, who is a CEDIA member and will be in attendance at the keynote, does it degrade some of this concept of bringing people in who are talking about, that pie in the sky idea of where this should go, knowing full and well that it's going to take years to actually get there, if it ever gets there in this iteration of, in this case, IoT or IOIT?
Well, first of all, I have to say I'm unbelievably disappointed that neither of you are using nanobots, as Ray Kurzweil, who was the futurist about 5 years ago at CDS, said that we would all be doing nanobots in our bloodstream. So
Well, I
you
really
guys are way
wanted
I
to.
behind.
keep waiting for it. I'm
Yeah.
totally in for taking a pill.
I keep asking my doctor, and she keeps going, huh?
So, but to Heather's point, I think the keynotes that I've appreciated the most, I can remember years back when they had the guy from Southwest Airlines who talked about real business management issues and how they built an airline with 2 airplanes, and what he had to do from a hiring standpoint and a personnel standpoint. I thought that to me still kind of stands out as one of the best ones, and that was going back quite a few years ago. But to your point on the IoT stuff, I think you're right. Everybody immediately goes in with skepticism. We all know it's coming. I think the way to look at it is try and pick out maybe individual products that might be at the show that you might be able to adapt one at a time. I just wrote something up last week about this Whisker Labs product that won the CTA Mark of Excellence Award for it's a device that recognizes the electronic signature of everything that's plugged into the home. So that's the refrigerator to the curling iron to the hair dryer. And they're coming out. CD is going to be their big coming out party with a product that's got an API for control systems. And now all of a sudden you as an integrator can start going to a customer and saying, hey, let's monitor the health and of all the electronic devices in your home, not just the low voltage stuff. So you look at one little thing like that, and it's kind of opens up the oyster, I think, a little bit. And then the whole IoT issue, I think, is there's a couple of sessions I know that are going to be discussed at the show that are about the liability. Where does your liability start or end as an integrator when you're connecting to the refrigerator that you didn't install, or the customer leaves the curling iron plugged in, and you put in a system that monitored it. It was supposed to tell me that curling iron was left in, and my house burned down. So there's a whole liability part that I think is more business oriented that probably should be a little more forefront.
Now, I guess kind of my last question is, and either one of you can answer this, do we actually see, because they have been touting this ever since they started flying that IoT flag, do we actually see a true business opportunity here beyond showing up and helping, if you will, a client with the majority of these? And I'm not talking IoT in the sense of like a doorbird or that type of piece, but I'm talking the bare bones piece that's, as Jason just alluded to, is tied into your hair dryer or your curling iron.
I think as CEDIA people, as technologists, I think if we think about it in that Sonos-esque type world, yes, right? Because Sonos exists everywhere. You can buy it online, you can buy it at Walmart, but yet there's still a way in. Sell a Sonos Connect amp with good speakers. There's a way in, and you can grow your client from there. I think if you can become the technologist for the client, you can start saying, like, yes, you own Alexa, and yes, you own Sonos, and what if I could integrate that for you? There's so much that we do that we may not think is difficult or is very difficult, but we do it all the time. It's like you can go to Home Depot and buy a toilet and all your parts and install it yourself, but most people don't want to. Same concept for us, right? So if we kind of keep our ear to the ground and know what is working, then I think that there is an avenue for us to make money and to have a business. But it is changing. I can feel it. Our whole industry is changing. And we need to be very careful, I think, if we want to stay relevant.
Very good. All right, let's move on to a story that comes to us from CE Pro. And this is about how to create the best possible 4K system. Now, we all know that 4K is here and not here all at the same time, and specifically that content is still a little hard to come by. What I loved about this article, and obviously you can catch it on CE Pro and read through it for yourself, but it really breaks down to what I view as really the key point of this is you have to, as an integrator, you have to get past your customer's perception of 4K as the buzzword and our knowledge as 4K the science. And a couple of the key things that they pick out is how when you're running a full, true native 4K system, you need to have at least 10.2 gigabits on your HDMI cable, and that everything in your signal chain needs to fit that. Now, we as integrators kind of know that you have to go that route anyways. You have to be planning your system out not just on a single device, whether that be a display or a set of speakers, but no matter what type of system you're putting together, everything in that signal chain needs to fit that highest spec. Otherwise, you're into that weakest link situation. Jason, do you still feel that dealers miss the boat, if you will, when it comes to selling 4K and informing their clients?
I hope not. I mean, we just recently completed the CE Pro 100 study, and one of the things we ask in there is what is the technology that has the biggest opportunity for you. And 4K cropped up for quite a few guys. So I do believe guys who have who can talk the difference and explain the difference and show the difference, especially with HDR, to their customer base, can sell more 4K. It's not. I think it's already proven itself that it's not the flop that 3D was. It's already had a little bit longer shelf life than 3D seemed to have. What's going to happen with the new HDMI 2.1 specification and the increased speed and HD over IP, which is now seems to be really rapidly starting to displace conventional HDMI switching. It could throw the whole thing into even more of a confusion state with the customer and the integrator. So I hope that's not the case. I hope it stays the course in some way, shape, or form, so that customers the content comes and dealers have the solutions for their customers. But I think the key takeaway from this article was still something that integrators do every day, which is find the best solution for your customer. If you've got a piecemeal together, whatever that cabling solution is, whatever that HD base T or HDMI solution is, or AV over IP or whatever it is, to be able to get them 4K with HDR, that's what you need to do. But to say that what you put in today isn't going to be obsolete in 2 years, you can't say that. It's amazing how quickly it's changing.
That's true. Heather, kind of the one thing that really caught my eye with this was that a 4K install is going to, and we've experienced this, as I'm sure you have, a 4K installation is going to require a little bit more forethought than a traditional installation, even down to, day of, and remembering that you can't just likely go to your local supplier to pick up an extra cable if you needed it. Is this something where, integrators are recognizing the additional time and additional effort that goes into deploying a true 4K system, and not only charging for it appropriately, but not running into massive problems internally when they do it?
I think that the cart was put a bit before the horse, like we love to do in our industry. So the 4K TVs became the big push, right? I mean, this year you really can't get anything below a 50-inch. Everything's 4K. So whether a client comes in and asks for it, which I find that they're not necessarily, some are, some aren't, then they're still having the ability, and then you have the ability to add on. Now, as you know, we're a bit more mass market, middle market. So our 4K experience has been often we are having people use the apps that are already on their smart TVs, which kind of eliminates the entire desired need to have the right HDMI cabling, right? Because I'm just using the smart apps that are already there. When it comes to a projection system, now that's a different story. But projectors haven't dropped enough in price to make that really an issue in our world. So I think that what we're talking about is more the process that's going to be or could be an issue. I have a rep that comes in every time that tells me that he doesn't like the cables that I buy. He keeps telling me that I'm going to have a problem. I haven't yet. I'm like, the day I do, I'll call you, but I'm currently okay, because there's a good enough factor.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's definitely a different story for the client that comes in and wants a $9,000 TV or a $20,000 projector, but most people, it becomes good enough.
Well, and I think the one thing to keep in mind is how often are you selling a true native 4K display? Just as you alluded to, most people that are buying 4K they're not actually, like, they're looking for 4K, but they're not buying
because they did a Google search and that's what someone told them to ask.
Exactly. But they're not going after that true native 120 hertz refresh rate on a 4K, actual 4K pixel count with HDR, with the processing in to do it. And then they want to hook up, their Apple TV or their Google Cast, or whatever device to it. So I agree. It's a hard question to ask because there are systems that require this, but I don't think it's as, I don't want to say prevalent, but the clients aren't looking for it to that extent yet, other than one-offs.
From standard definition to high definition, I remember we would do a home show every year, and I could point out to every single person, young and old. We had this DVD demo, and it would show a line that would go through, and it would be standard def on one side and high def on the other, and you could point it out.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone saw it. There's people still that I bet you have high def TVs that are not even watching high def. Like, they don't even know that their stations, it's not just channel 2, it's channel 502 or 902.
Well,
and now we're introducing something better than that, and now it's just.
Have either of you gotten into the fiber portion of this yet for replacing the copper?
I haven't. Go ahead, Matt.
No.
We just have FiOS here, Verizon Fiber to the house, but once it's in the house, we haven't personally done any fiber yet.
We've looked at a couple of the options for fiber distribution, and we've quoted on a couple. Again, it's a bit of a hard sell a lot of times because it's that future-proof application, especially up here, because we do have, not FiOS, but we do have some fiber to the home. But it's I think right now we're at like 10% coverage for our local area. Once we get there, and this does kind of remind me of back when we were doing, a lot of house of worship work and broadcast video. We did a lot of work in that SD to HD transition. And we sold countless churches on a 720 HD system that could upconvert to 1080. Because that's what they needed for their local broadcast. They didn't need to go, to a full 1080 system because there was no need. And it was so far down the road before their local broadcaster was going to be switching their infrastructure to allow for a 1080 broadcast. Why would we put the money in? And even last week, I was in a client's home. He was complaining that his HD video just didn't look very good. So I popped in. I was in the neighborhood. He's a good client. Pulled up his cable box instantly and went, "Yep, you're on 720. What? Like, yep. Have you touched this since you put it in? Because he got a new box, I don't know, like 8 months ago. I'm like, nope. Okay, you ever since you got this new 4K box, it's never been out of 720. And you've loved it until it pixelated on this. But, notwithstanding, it goes back to Heather's point. There's so many people that even today still think they're getting 1080. They're getting true full HD, and they're watching 720 sports.
I guess the beauty of that is at least the customer recognized visually there was something wrong. And to Heather's point, a lot of customers may not even see that. But all this confusion feeds into your businesses, hopefully.
It does, and it's an interesting way to get there, because we did a 4K installation for a client that we kind of took over a project, and he was all excited and gung-ho, and I was over one day and we were looking at some stuff in his basement for expansion. We got upstairs and he asked me, is there can I look at a 4K DVD player? I'm like, sure you can. It's Ultra HD. It's technically 2K up converting. There's no, unless you're looking at Oppo's or something crazy. He's like, no, I was looking at this, whatever. I'm like, okay. So we took a look at his system, 1080 switcher. I said, well, you got a 4K beautiful, 70-inch Sony there. But unless you're using Netflix, you've never seen a 4K picture on that. It's like, no, I got the cable, I got this, I got
Right.
that. Like,
I
nope.
paid for it, so I must.
You've got a lovely 1080p switcher, and you don't know the difference. You've thought you've been watching 4K.
And you've probably been bragging to your friends.
You have. You've had your friends over for beer nights and everything else. You're not watching it. You're paying for the content, and it's never getting out of your box. So I'm hoping that it gets there, but I also see a lot of frustration from the consumer end of things.
Yeah, and Jason, to what you're saying, I completely agree with you. I think that is an opportunity. That's an opportunity to let the client know that this is not as easy as I bought it from Amazon, or I got got my toilet paper, so I just bought that new flat screen, and now I want to watch it. If we can let them know that there's more to it than that, then yeah, I think we can score a lot of clients that way, because you build the trust with them, and if you're giving them the right solution, they'll keep coming back.
Very good. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's move to our probably last story of the day. This comes to us from strategy.com and the one and only Ted Green. THX is joining the Streaming Video Alliance. If you don't know what THX is, then I'm concerned.
Then why are you listening to this show?
Why are you watching our show? To learn. Let me tell you what THX is. About 30 years or so, THX created essentially the first real certification standards for commercial cinemas and then residential home theater experiences.
That great robot.
Oh, yes. Everybody loves it. I still use a THX demo disc because I'm that
It's still
guy.
my favorite too out of all time.
It's fantastic. And obviously they now have it for Atmos and everything else. Where this gets entertaining and applies to the story is they are now a member of the Streaming Video Alliance. Now, what this alliance does is this is not the alliance that sets the standards, but it is an alliance that puts together a massive group of people like Comcast, Fox, Cisco, Charter, IBM, Intel, all the big players, including Adobe and Hughes, shockingly enough. But what they're going to do is they're going to start proposing streaming video standards and then allow the actual organizations that set those standards to work off their suggestions. Heather, bringing a player who is known for obviously video certification specifically, having them become a member of this group, and again, realizing that this won't necessarily affect my business or your business or any other integrator's business tomorrow, but this should, in theory, lead to a better understanding of streaming video, how it affects the video content you're watching, and honestly, how this applies to everything we've talked about today, from 4K to everything else. How do you see this really, moving beyond that?
I think it's a positive thing. I think that I think everything will be streaming. I think if we look at our kids, all of us have kids that they don't know what channel surfing is. They don't turn on a TV to see what's on. Everything is streaming. I think that the more that they're going to grow up, it's a demand. And I love to see that our players, I feel like THX is one of us, are becoming part of that, right? They're going to help make that better, so that when you are able to every day stream whatever the latest is, you're going to have great video quality, great audio quality. So it'll be what the Blu-rays were to us when they first came out.
Very good. Jason, with somebody like, because you go through that list of some of the members of SVA, and some, those are big companies, but they're not necessarily AV companies. There's some IT companies. There's a ton of telecom companies.
Yeah.
There's companies like Adobe. What does bringing the expertise that THX has in producing and being able to replicate that experience, that visual and auditory experience in a commercial theater, what does bringing somebody like that into the group mean for the SVA? And maybe more importantly, will they be able to push past all the telcos and everybody else who aren't, that's definitely not likely their focus.
Well, it's interesting because after I saw this, I went back and I found the original press release that THX had put out in regards to this, and there was kind of an offhand little mention in there where they said, even though the alliance is focused on video, THX is very excited about bringing its expertise in the audio space to this group. So I think that it's going to be, we might, again, elevate, rising tide raises all ships here. If we start elevating the audio quality that comes out of the phones, then all the millennials who are listening in their earbuds and all those sorts of things are going to want to and desire to have better audio quality. I wish I could tell you I knew more about the alliance itself, but I would suspect that we will see a certification that comes out of this alliance because of this, specifically for, streaming audio, the quality of the streaming audio and the streaming video from THX participating. And obviously it's got a lot of big money behind it too. That's the other thing. It's not just a bunch of guys getting together to hang out at the local Days Inn. Yeah. They don't go to the Days Inn, they go to the Marriott.
Well,
by the way, I also want to know how Heather did that rolling of her tongue there with the THX. I've never been able to roll my tongue. That's really a talent.
How many times
If I could get it to go from one ear to the other, then it would be really impressive.
Oh, we could map that in post. We can do that.
Please do
yeah,
that.
no problem. No problem. We'll spin it around for the Atmos and drop it back down. I think, Jason, you brought up kind of the key point is it's not just video. It's also the audio side of things. Even though they say streaming video alliance, it's streaming media.
Yeah. And
when we look at what, how everyone is consuming content today, it's not the disc. It's not going to your local video store. It's streaming. It's YouTube. It's everything else. And boosting that would be fantastic. Tim just told me we can't do that, Heather. We produce in mono.
All right.
Oh, I'm sorry. We'll put a footnote in.
Next time.
Everyone's in their head. This actually went left to right. Just go with that.
Use your imagination.
Exactly. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's cut it there. Thank you so much, both of you, for joining us. Heather, where can people connect with you?
Let's see. You can certainly find me on Twitter. I am tech_chi, CHI. That's a great place to find me. Where else am I, Matt? I'm on Facebook.
You're in Buffalo?
I'm in Buffalo. My company is Southtown Audio Video, www.southtownav.com.
Very good. Thanks again for being here. Jason, where can people connect with you?
You can find me on cepro.com, or you can follow me on Twitter at JasonWNott.
Very good. And obviously, thanks again for joining us. If you'd like to follow myself, you can find me at Matt D. Scott on Twitter and every other social platform. More importantly, please take a moment to stop by AVNation.tv. You'll find this show as well as a wide variety of our other shows with all the other verticals that we cover. When you visit the website, please take a moment to check out our underwriters. We are extremely thankful for their support and ask that you check them out and support them as well. Thanks again for watching. That's all the time we have for this episode of Resi Week.